Take your clothes off right now, you whore! Major Harlan's voice thundered across the parade ground at Fort Ironclad, Arizona. 180 soldiers stood frozen in the scorching August heat. 25-year-old Private Maya Chen didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She simply reached for her first button. What happened next would shatter everything these men thought they knew about strength, courage, and the quiet woman they'd mocked for weeks. Because when her uniform came off, they saw the tattoo. And every man on that field stopped breathing. Before we continue, please subscribe to this channel and follow Maya's incredible story to the very end. Comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. The military transport bus groaned to a stop, its brakes releasing a tired hiss that echoed across the empty compound. Fort Ironclad lived up to its name. The Arizona desert stretched endlessly in every direction, and the August sun hammered down without mercy. Maya Chen gripped the seat in front of her, steadied her breathing, and stood. She was 25 years old, 5'4", 118 pounds soaking wet. Her black hair was pulled back in a regulation bun so tight it made her temples ache. She looked like a college student who'd taken a wrong turn. That was exactly the point. The bus driver, a weathered civilian contractor, glanced at her through his mirror. "You sure this is your stop? Sweetheart, Fort Ironclad ain't exactly a resort." Maya grabbed her duffel bag. "I'm sure." He shrugged. "Your funeral." She stepped off the bus, and her boots hit the cracked concrete. The heat slammed into her like a physical wall. Within seconds, sweat beaded along her hairline. Ahead of her, rows of barracks stretched toward the horizon. To her left, a massive training field where soldiers ran drills in the brutal sun. To her right, the command building, a squat, ugly structure that radiated authority. And everywhere she looked, men stared. 180 of them. All male. All watching the only woman who'd set foot on this base in months. Maya shouldered her bag and walked forward. She didn't hurry. She didn't slow down. She moved like someone who belonged exactly where she was. The whispers started immediately. "Holy shit, look at that. They sent us a girl, a goddamn girl. $10 says she's crying by dinner. 20 says she doesn't last the week." A group of soldiers near the water station openly laughed. One of them, a thick-necked corporal with sunburned cheeks, called out loud enough for everyone to hear. "Hey, sweetheart, the coffee shop's about 300 miles that way." More laughter. Maya didn't turn her head. She kept walking. Another voice, rougher. "Must be another diversity hire. Pentagon's gotta hit their quota somehow." Quota my ass. She probably slept with someone to get here. Maya's jaw tightened, but her stride never broke. She'd heard worse. Much worse. In places these men couldn't imagine. She reached the command building and pushed through the heavy doors. The air conditioning hit her like a blessing from God. A young specialist sat behind a desk, his eyes widening when he saw her. "Can I help you? Private First Class Maya Chen reporting for assignment." He fumbled with papers, clearly caught off guard. Right, Chen. Yeah, you're on the list." He scanned his clipboard twice like he expected her name to disappear. "You're assigned to Bravo Company. Barracks 7, Bunk 12. "Thank you. Major Harlan will want to see you. He reviews all new arrivals personally." Maya nodded. "When now would be good." The specialist lowered his voice. "Word of advice, don't make eye contact too long, and whatever you do, don't talk back." Maya studied him. The kid was maybe 22, and there was genuine concern in his eyes. Not mockery. Fear. "Thanks for the warning," she said. She found Major Harlan's office at the end of a long corridor. The door was open. She knocked anyway. "Enter." Victor Harlan sat behind a desk covered in neat stacks of paper. He was 52 years old, built like a man who'd spent decades punishing his body and everyone else's. His jaw was square, his eyes cold, and his crew cut had gone steel gray years ago. He didn't look up when Maya entered. He let her stand there at attention for a full minute before acknowledging her existence. Finally, he spoke. "Private Chen." "Yes, sir." He picked up a thin folder, her file, and flipped it open with obvious disinterest. "Supply clerk, Fort Riley, Kansas. Unremarkable service record, no commendations, no disciplinary issues." He looked up. "Boring." Maya said nothing. Harlan leaned back in his chair. "Do you know why soldiers get sent to Fort Ironclad Private? Correction and retraining, sir." "That's the official line?" He stood, walked around the desk, and positioned himself directly in front of her. He was over 6 feet tall. He used every inch of it to tower over her. "The truth is, this is where the Army sends its problems, the failures, the weak links." His eyes traveled down her body with undisguised contempt. "And apparently it's diversity experiments." Maya kept her gaze forward. "I volunteered for this assignment, sir." Harlan laughed. It wasn't a pleasant sound. "Volunteered for Fort Ironclad." He leaned closer. She could smell coffee on his breath. "Either you're lying, or you're stupid." "Which is it?" "Neither, sir." His eyes narrowed. "We'll see about that." He walked back to his desk and sat down. "I've had 3 female soldiers under my command in the past 18 months. Do you know where they are now?" "No, sir." "Gone. All of them. One transferred out after 2 weeks. One quit the Army entirely. And one—" He paused, a strange smile crossing his face. "One decided military life wasn't worth living anymore." Maya's blood ran cold, but her expression didn't change. Harlan continued. "I don't believe women belong in combat units. I don't believe they have the physical capability, the mental toughness, or the emotional stability to perform under pressure. This isn't sexism private. It's biology." He picked up a pen, twirled it between his fingers. "You will be treated exactly like every other soldier on this base. No special accommodations, no lighter duties, no excuses." "I don't want special treatment, sir." "Good, because you won't get it." He waved his hand dismissively. "Report to Sergeant Reeves at the training field. He'll get you oriented. Dismissed." Maya saluted, turned sharply, and walked out. Behind her, Harlan watched her go. He picked up his phone and dialed. "Reeves, that new transfer just left my office. The female." He paused. "Yes, her. I want her schedule doubled. Every drill, every exercise, every shit detail you can find. Let's see how long the little girl lasts." Maya found Sergeant Reeves at the obstacle course, screaming at a group of soldiers struggling through the mud pit. He was Harlan's right hand, 40 years old, lean as a whip, with the kind of eyes that had seen too much and enjoyed most of it. "Private Chen reporting, Sergeant." Reeves turned. His gaze swept over her like she was a piece of equipment he'd already decided was defective. "So, you're the new project." He spat into the dirt. "Harlan told me about you. Said you volunteered." He laughed. "That true?" "Yes, Sergeant." "Why, you got a death wish. I want to serve where I'm needed most." Reeves stared at her for a long moment. Then he shook his head. "Bravo, Company. Barracks 7, Bunk 12. Morning PT starts at 04:30. Don't be late." "Yes, Sergeant." "And Chen," he stepped closer. "A word of advice. Keep your head down, your mouth shut, and maybe you'll survive long enough to transfer out. Because nobody here wants you. Nobody's going to help you. And if you cry, complain, or cause any problems," he smiled, "you'll wish you'd never been born." Maya held his gaze. Understood, Sergeant. She turned and walked toward the barracks. Behind her, Reeves watched her go, a flicker of something curiosity-annoyance crossing his face. This one was different. He could feel it, but different didn't mean dangerous. Different just meant she'd break in a more interesting way, had said. Barrack 7 smelled like sweat gun oil and testosterone. 40 men lived here, stacked in bunks along both walls. When Maya walked through the door, every conversation stopped. For a moment, no one moved. Then a soldier in the far corner let out a low whistle. Well, well, well. Looks like we got ourselves a new roommate, boys. Laughter rippled through the room. Maya walked to bunk 12 without responding. It was in the worst position directly under a ventilation duct that rattled constantly next to the latrine door. The mattress was thin, the frame rusted. She set down her duffel bag and began unpacking. The same soldier from the corner, a corporal named Torres, she'd learn later, swaggered over. He was good-looking in an aggressive way with dark hair and a permanent smirk. Hey, new girl, you lost. Maya didn't look up. No. Because this is a combat unit. We don't have room for secretaries. She continued unpacking. Good thing I'm not a secretary. Torres's smirk faltered. He wasn't used to being ignored. You think you're tough? Coming in here with that attitude? Maya finally looked at him. Her eyes were calm, steady, and completely unimpressed. I think I'm a soldier assigned to this unit. Same as you. Someone in the back laughed nervously. Torres's face reddened. We'll see about that, he said. We'll see how tough you are when Harlan's done with you. He walked away. Maya returned to her unpacking. From her bag, she pulled a small framed photograph. She held it for a moment, her thumb tracing the edges. The photo showed a group of women in unmarked black uniforms, faces blurred for security. Only their smiles were visible. Maya's eyes lingered on one figure in the center. A woman with her same build, her same posture, her same quiet intensity. She tucked the photo into her pillow, hidden from view. Then she pulled off her uniform jacket and reached for a standard-issue t-shirt. In the mirror across the room, just for a moment, a tattoo was visible on her shoulder blade. Wings of fire, a phoenix rising from ashes, and beneath it coordinates that didn't exist on any public map. Maya pulled the shirt on quickly, covering the mark. No one had seen it. Not yet. Morning PT started at 4:30, just like Reeves promised. Except for Maya, it started at 4. Someone had reset her alarm. She woke anyway. Internal clock. Old habits. The 5-mile run nearly killed half the unit. Maya finished in the top 15. She didn't celebrate. She didn't acknowledge the surprised looks. She just bent over, caught her breath, and waited for the next exercise. The obstacle course was next. She completed it without falling, without slowing, without asking for help. Her time wasn't the fastest, but it was faster than 30 other soldiers who'd been here for months. At the shooting range, she put every round through the center of her target. Tight groupings. Surgical precision. The range instructor, a grizzled master sergeant named Wallace, watched her with narrowed eyes. Where'd you learn to shoot like that, Private? Basic training, Master Sergeant. He grunted. Basic training doesn't teach that. But Maya ejected her magazine and set down the weapon. I practiced a lot. Wallace studied her for a long moment. There was something in his expression, not suspicion exactly. Recognition. Like he was seeing something he couldn't quite place. What unit were you with before Fort Riley? Supply and Logistics, Master Sergeant. He didn't believe her. She could see it in his eyes. But he didn't push. Carry on. By the end of the first week, Maya had established a pattern. She woke early. She trained hard. She spoke only when necessary. She ignored the insults, the pranks, the constant harassment. Someone put a dead rat in her footlocker. She disposed of it without comment. Someone wrote "whore" on her bunk in permanent marker. She scrubbed it off herself. Someone spread a rumor that she'd been caught sleeping with an officer at her last post. She didn't dignify it with a response. The men didn't know what to make of her. She wasn't crying. She wasn't complaining. She wasn't breaking. And that made them angry. Torres cornered her after dinner on day 8. He had 2 friends with him, soldiers whose names Maya hadn't bothered to learn. "We need to talk, Chen." Maya was carrying her tray to the dish station. She didn't stop walking. "About what?" Torres stepped in front of her, blocking her path. "About how you don't belong here." She looked up at him. He was 6 inches taller and 80 pounds heavier. His friends flanked her on both sides. "Move," she said quietly. Torres laughed. "Or what? You gonna report me, run crying to Harlan?" He leaned down until his face was inches from hers. "Newsflash, sweetheart. Harlan hates you more than we do." I said move. Something in her voice made Torres hesitate, just for a second. A flicker of uncertainty crossed his face. Then he recovered, puffing out his chest. "You know what I think? I think you're a fake. I think you couldn't hack it anywhere else, so they dumped you here to get rid of you. And I think if we make your life miserable enough, you'll be gone by the end of the month." Maya set down her tray. Slowly, deliberately. "Are you done?" she asked. Torres blinked. "What? I asked if you're done, because I have training in 6 hours and I'd like to get some sleep." His face twisted with rage. He grabbed her arm, fingers digging into her bicep. "Listen here, you little—" Maya moved. It happened so fast that Torres's friends didn't even register what they'd seen. One moment he was grabbing her. The next he was on his knees, arm twisted behind his back at an angle that made him gasp in pain. Maya held him there for exactly 2 seconds. Then she released him, stepped back, and picked up her tray. "Don't touch me again," she said. She walked to the dish station, deposited her tray, and left the mess hall without looking back. Torres remained on his knees, cradling his arm, staring after her, with a mixture of shock and something that might have been fear. "What the hell?" one of his friends whispered. "What the hell was that?" Torres didn't answer. He couldn't. Because in that brief moment when she'd had him locked up and helpless, he'd seen something in Maya Chen's eyes. Not anger, not fear, nothing. Like she'd turned off every emotion and become something else entirely. Something trained, something dangerous, something that shouldn't exist in a supply clerk from Kansas. The incident spread through the barracks within hours. By morning, everyone had heard some version of it. Torres claimed he'd slipped on spilled water. His friends knew the truth, but were too shaken to contradict him. But the story grew anyway. Whispers followed Maya wherever she went. "Did you hear? She dropped Torres like nothing?" "Bullshit. Torres is twice her size." "I'm telling you, man. Danny saw the whole thing. Said she moved like nothing he'd ever seen." Supply clerk my ass. Something's off about her. Sergeant Reeves heard the rumors. He reported them to Harlan. Harlan listened with growing irritation. "She got lucky. Torres probably tripped over his own feet." "Maybe," Reeves said, "but the men are talking. Some of them are starting to, I don't know, wonder about her." Harlan slammed his hand on the desk. "I don't care what they wonder. She's a problem and problems get solved. Push harder. Find something, anything I can use against her." Reeves nodded. "Yes, sir." That night someone slashed Maya's uniform jacket. The cut was deep, deliberate, impossible to repair. She would have to requisition a new one. That meant paperwork. That meant attention. That meant Harlan would have another excuse to call her into his office. Maya examined the ruined jacket without expression. Then she pulled out a sewing kit from her duffel bag and began repairing it herself. The stitches were invisible. Perfect. Like the cut had never happened. In her bunk, hidden under her pillow, the photograph of the women in black remained, and beneath her regulation t-shirt, the phoenix tattoo burned against her skin like a promise. 3 more weeks. She just had to survive 3 more weeks. And then everything would change. Day 12. Night navigation exercise. 20 soldiers dropped into unfamiliar terrain with nothing but a compass, a map, and 4 hours to reach the extraction point. Maya was assigned to Torres's fire team. He hadn't spoken to her since the mess hall incident. He didn't acknowledge her existence. But she could feel his hatred radiating off him like heat from asphalt. The terrain was brutal, rocky, uneven, studded with cacti and ravines that appeared without warning. Torres led the team with aggressive confidence, barking directions like he knew exactly where he was going. He didn't. 30 minutes in, Maya knew they were off course. The stars were wrong. The terrain didn't match the map. Torres was leading them in circles. She said nothing. Not at first. She gave him time to figure it out himself. He didn't. An hour passed. Then 90 minutes. The other team members were getting nervous, checking their watches, exchanging worried glances. Finally, Maya spoke. "Corporal, we're moving southeast. The extraction point is northeast." Torres stopped. Slowly, he turned to face her. "Excuse me. We've been traveling the wrong direction for over an hour. At this pace, we won't reach the extraction point before dawn." The other soldiers shifted uncomfortably. Torres's face flushed red in the moonlight. "You think you know better than me, Chen? I think the compass doesn't lie." Torres stepped toward her. "I've done this exercise 15 times. I know exactly where we are." Maya held up her map, pointing to their current position versus where they should be. "We're here. We need to be here. That's a 4-kilometer difference." "Bullshit. Check your compass. Compare it to the terrain features. The ridge on our left should be on our right if we were on course." The other soldiers looked around. She was right. The ridge was wrong. Everything was wrong. Torres's jaw tightened. "Fine. You think you're so smart, you lead." It was a trap. If she succeeded, he'd claim credit. If she failed, he'd blame her entirely. Maya didn't hesitate. "Follow me." She took point, moving through the darkness with unsettling confidence. Her pace was quick but controlled. She navigated ravines, avoided dead ends, and found paths that shouldn't have been visible in the dark. 20 minutes later, they reached the extraction point. First team to arrive. The evaluating officer, a captain named Mercer, checked his watch with visible surprise. "Torres, your team made excellent time." Torres opened his mouth to take credit. "Actually, sir," one of the other soldiers said, a private named Rodriguez who'd been watching Maya all night. "Private Chen led us here. She took over navigation when we got lost." Mercer raised an eyebrow. "Is that so?" Torres's face contorted with barely suppressed rage. "She disobeyed orders and undermined my leadership, sir. I want her written up." Mercer looked at Maya. "Private Chen, did you disobey a direct order?" Maya met his gaze. "The corporal instructed me to lead the team to the extraction point, sir. I followed that order." After contradicting his navigation. "I provided a correction to keep the mission on track, sir. The mission comes first." Mercer studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "It does indeed." He turned to Torres. "No write-up. Mission completed successfully. Dismissed." Torres stormed off without a word. The other soldiers followed, some casting curious glances back at Maya. Rodriguez lingered for a moment. That was impressive, he said quietly. Where'd you learn to navigate like that? Maya shouldered her pack. Practice. He waited for more. She didn't give him anything. Okay, he said finally. Well, thanks for getting us there. Maya nodded once and walked away. She could feel Torres's eyes on her back, burning with humiliation, plotting revenge. The next morning, she found a formal complaint on her bunk. Torres had reported her for insubordination, endangering the team, and conduct unbecoming a soldier. The complaint was addressed to Major Harlan. Maya read it once, folded it carefully, and placed it in her locker. Then she laced up her boots and headed to morning PT. She knew what was coming. She was counting on it. 3 days after the navigation exercise, a young soldier approached Maya after dinner. Private Collins, 19 years old, fresh out of training, and terrified of his own shadow. Private Chen. Maya was cleaning her rifle at a table near the armory. What is it, Collins? He glanced around nervously, making sure no one was watching. Can I ask you something? Go ahead. Collins sat down across from her, keeping his voice low. How do you do it? Do what? Take it. All the crap they throw at you. The insults, the pranks, Torres and his goons. He shook his head. If it were me, I'd have lost it by now. Or quit. How do you just not care? Maya set down her rifle and looked at him. Really looked at him. She saw herself years ago. Scared. Overwhelmed. Desperate to prove something to people who'd already decided she was nothing. I do care, she said quietly. I just don't let it control me. But how? Maya was silent for a moment. You ever been in a storm, Collins, a real one? Thunder, lightning, wind that feels like it's going to tear the world apart? He nodded, uncertainly. What happens if you try to fight a storm? You lose. You get destroyed. Maya picked up her rifle again, resumed cleaning. But if you stay calm, if you find shelter, if you wait it out, the storm passes. It always passes. And you're still standing. Collins stared at her. So you're just waiting. I'm surviving. There's a difference between running from something and outlasting it. He processed that for a moment. They're never going to accept you. You know that, right, Harlan, Torres, the rest of them? They'll never see you as one of them. Maya smiled faintly. I'm not trying to be one of them. I'm trying to be better than what they expect. Collins didn't know what to say to that. He stood nodded awkwardly and walked away. Maya watched him go. That kid was going to be okay. She could see it. Underneath the fear, there was steel. He just didn't know it yet. She looked down at her rifle. Clean. Ready. Waiting. Just like her. Day 15. Morning formation. Harlan stood at the front of the parade ground, surveying his troops with cold satisfaction. The Arizona sun was already brutal at 0700 heat, shimmering off the concrete like waves. Today, Harlan announced, we separate the soldiers from the pretenders. He began walking the line, stopping at random soldiers to inspect their uniforms, their posture, their readiness. This unit has grown soft, complacent. Too many of you think you can coast through on minimum effort. His voice sharpened. That ends today. He stopped in front of Maya. She stood at perfect attention. Uniform immaculate. Boots polished. Eyes forward. Harlan studied her like a specimen under glass. Private Chen, how are you finding Fort Ironclad? Challenging, sir. Challenging. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I've been reviewing your performance reports, navigation exercise, shooting range, physical fitness tests. He paused. Impressive numbers for a supply clerk." "Thank you, sir." "It wasn't a compliment." He leaned closer. "Where did you really train, Private?" Maya didn't blink. "Fort Riley, sir. Supply and logistics." Harlan's eyes searched her face for any crack, any tell. "You know what I think, Chen? I think you're lying. I think there's something in your file that got conveniently lost. And I intend to find out what." He straightened, raised his voice for everyone to hear. "In 2 days, we're having a full uniform inspection. Everyone, no exceptions." He looked directly at Maya. "I want to see exactly what kind of soldier you really are." He walked away, leaving Maya standing at attention. Around her, soldiers exchanged glances. Whispers rippled through the formation. Something was coming. Everyone could feel it. Maya's hand unconsciously moved toward her shoulder, toward the tattoo hidden beneath layers of fabric. 2 days. She had 2 days to decide how this would end. The next 36 hours felt like walking through a minefield blindfolded. Maya knew Harlan was planning something. The inspection announcement wasn't routine. It was a setup. She could feel it in the way he watched her during drills, the way Reeves smiled when she passed, the way the other soldiers grew quieter around her. Something was coming. Something ugly. That night, she sat on her bunk, after lights out, listening to the snores and murmurs of 40 men. Her hand rested on her shoulder, fingers tracing the outline of the tattoo through her shirt. 12 women had earned this mark. 8 were dead. 3 had disappeared into classified operations so deep their own families thought they'd died. And Maya, the youngest, the last, was hiding in a correction camp, pretending to be nobody. Her commander's voice echoed in her memory. "You don't have to do this, Chen. We can send someone else." "No," she'd replied. "It has to be me. I'm the only one young enough, unknown enough to pass as a fresh transfer. If they find out who you are..." "They won't. Not until I'm ready." But ready for what? That was the question she kept asking herself. Expose Harlan Gather, enough evidence to end his career, or something more personal, something that had to do with the photograph hidden under her pillow. The woman in the center of that photo. The one with Maya's build, Maya's posture, Maya's quiet intensity. Her sister, Jean. Jean Chen had been stationed at Fort Ironclad 18 months ago. She'd been assigned to Harlan's unit. And 3 weeks later, she was dead. Official report. Suicide. Case closed. Maya didn't believe it. Not for a second. Jean was the strongest person she'd ever known. Jean had survived Shadow Phoenix training. Jean had walked through fire and come out laughing. Jean didn't kill herself. Something happened here. Someone made it happen. And Maya was going to find out who. The morning before the inspection, Torres cornered her behind the motor pool. He had 4 men with him this time. Not 2. He'd learned from his mistake. "Chen." Maya turned slowly. She was carrying a toolbox, standard maintenance duty. She set it down carefully. "Corporal." Torres stepped forward close enough that she could smell the tobacco on his breath. "You embarrassed me. In front of Captain Mercer. In front of my own team. You got lost. I got us to the extraction point. That's not embarrassment. That's mission completion." His face twisted. "You think you're smart. You think you're better than us. I think you're blocking my path." One of his friends laughed nervously. Torres silenced him with a look. "Tomorrow's inspection," Torres said softly. "Harlan's got something special planned for you. Something that's going to make you wish you'd never set foot on this base." Maya met his eyes. "And you know what it is?" Torres smiled. It was the ugliest smile she'd ever seen. "Let's just say, everyone's going to see what you really are. And when they do, you'll be gone, one way or another. He shoved past her shoulder, checking her hard enough to send her stumbling. His friends followed, laughing. Maya watched them go. Her heart was pounding, but not from fear, from anticipation. Whatever Harlan was planning, she was ready. She'd been ready for 18 months. That afternoon, Master Sergeant Wallace found her at the shooting range. She was putting rounds downrange with methodical precision, grouping so tight the holes overlapped. "Mind if I join you?" Maya lowered her weapon. "Free country, Master Sergeant." Wallace took the lane beside her. He was 62 years old, with gray hair and eyes that had seen more death than most people could imagine. He'd been in the Army for 34 years, 3 combat tours, countless decorations. He was also the only person on base who'd looked at Maya with something other than contempt or confusion. He loaded his magazine, chambered a round, and fired. His grouping was nearly as tight as hers. "You know," he said between shots, "I've been training soldiers for 20 years. I can tell a lot about someone by how they handle a weapon." Maya reloaded. "What can you tell about me?" Wallace paused, studying her profile. "That you've done this before, not just training, real shooting, under pressure, when it mattered." Maya said nothing. "Supply clerks don't shoot like you do," Wallace continued. "They don't move like you do. They don't think like you do." He lowered his weapon. "So who are you really, Private Chen?" For a long moment, Maya didn't answer. Then she set down her rifle and turned to face him. "Can I ask you something, Master Sergeant?" "Go ahead." "Did you know a soldier named Jean Chen? She was stationed here about 18 months ago." Wallace's expression shifted. Just slightly, a flicker of recognition followed by something darker. "Why do you ask?" "She was my sister." The words hung in the air between them. Wallace's jaw tightened. His eyes dropped to the ground. "I knew her," he said quietly. "Good soldier, tough as nails. Reminded me of—" He stopped. "Of who?" Wallace looked up. "Of you." Maya's chest constricted. What happened to her, the real story, not the official report? Wallace glanced around, making sure they were alone. Then he moved closer, lowering his voice. "Your sister didn't kill herself, Private. I've seen soldiers in crisis. I've seen the warning signs. Jean wasn't showing any of them. She was adapting, excelling even. And then one day—" He shook his head. "They found her in the latrine. Made it look like she did it herself. But there were things that didn't add up." "What things?" "Bruises on her arms, defensive wounds like she'd been fighting someone off. And the timing it happened the night after she filed a formal complaint against Harlan for harassment." Maya's blood turned to ice. She filed a complaint. Officially, it never existed. Someone made it disappear, along with anyone who might have corroborated it. Wallace's voice hardened. 3 other women have been driven out since then. Same pattern. Harassment, isolation, breakdown, or worse. And Harlan always walks away clean. Why hasn't anyone stopped him? Because his uncle is a 2-star general. Because the people who could expose him are too scared to talk. Because the system protects its own. Wallace met her eyes. And because the only person who ever had real evidence, your sister, is dead. Maya stood perfectly still. Inside her, something cold and sharp was crystallizing. Not grief, not rage, something more focused. "What kind of evidence?" Wallace hesitated. "Jean kept records, dates times witnesses. She was building a case. She told me about it a week before she died." He paused. "She hid them somewhere on base. Somewhere Harlan couldn't find them, but I don't know where." "You never looked—" "I looked, for months. Never found anything." His voice dropped even lower. "But your sister was smart. Smarter than anyone gave her credit for. If she hid something, she hid it well." Maya's mind was racing. Jean's records. Proof of what Harlan had done. That's why she was really here, not just to expose him, but to finish what her sister started. Thank you, Master Sergeant. Wallace nodded slowly. Be careful, Private. Whatever you're planning, Harlan's not going to make it easy. He's got eyes everywhere, and he's already suspicious of you. I know. Then you know tomorrow's inspection isn't about uniforms. Wallace picked up his rifle, turned toward the target. It's about breaking you, in front of everyone, making sure no one ever takes you seriously again. Maya shouldered her own weapon. Let him try. Wallace glanced at her one more time. Something like respect flickered in his tired eyes. Your sister would be proud of you, he said. Then he fired, and the conversation was over. That night Maya couldn't sleep. She lay in her bunk, staring at the ceiling, running through everything Wallace had told her. Jean had kept records, hidden them somewhere on base, somewhere Harlan couldn't find, but where Maya thought about her sister. The way Jean's mind worked, always 2 steps ahead, always planning for contingencies. If Jean had hidden something important, she would have put it somewhere Maya could find it, somewhere only Maya would think to look. Their mother's favorite saying echoed in her memory. When the phoenix rises, it always returns to where it was born. The phoenix. Maya sat up slowly. Her tattoo. Jean had the same one, same design, same placement. They'd gotten them together after surviving their final mission. Twin phoenixes, sisters in ink and blood. But there was one difference. Jean's tattoo had an extra element, a small set of coordinates hidden in the feathers. Maya had always assumed they were meaningless. A personal touch. What if they weren't? She pulled out her map of the base, the one she'd memorized on her first day. She converted the coordinates in her mind, tracing them across the terrain. They pointed to a storage building on the far edge of the compound. Building 47, officially decommissioned, scheduled for demolition. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. That was it. That had to be it. She checked her watch. 2:30. The base was quiet. Most soldiers were asleep. Security was minimal. She had 4 hours until morning PT. Maya pulled on her boots, grabbed her jacket, and slipped out of the barracks. The night air was cold against her skin. She moved through the shadows with practiced ease, avoiding the pools of light from security lamps, timing her movements to the rhythm of the patrolling guards. Building 47 was exactly where the coordinates said it would be. A squat concrete structure, windows boarded up chain-link fence surrounding it. Warning signs plastered everywhere. Condemned. No entry. Authorized personnel only. Maya scaled the fence in seconds. The padlock on the door was rusted. She picked it in under a minute. Skills that weren't in any supply clerk's training manual. Inside the building smelled like dust and decay. Old equipment lined the walls. Filing cabinets, broken chairs, forgotten relics of a base that had grown and changed over decades. Maya pulled out a small flashlight, keeping the beam low. She searched methodically, working through the clutter with quiet efficiency. 20 minutes. 30. Nothing. She was about to give up when she noticed something odd. A filing cabinet in the corner, newer than the others. Less dusty. Like someone had moved it recently, or at least more recently than everything else. Maya pulled it away from the wall. Behind it, barely visible, was a small hole cut into the concrete. And inside the hole, wrapped in plastic, was a manila envelope. Her hands trembled as she pulled it out. She opened it carefully. Inside were photographs, documents, dates, names. Witness statements written in Jean's neat handwriting. 12 pages of evidence documenting everything Victor Harlan had done. Harassment, assault, intimidation, cover-ups. And there on the final page, a note in Jean's hand. If you're reading this, I'm probably dead. Don't let him win. Don't let him do this to anyone else. Finish what I started. I love you, little sister. Rise from the ashes. Maya stared at the words until they blurred. Then she carefully repacked the envelope, tucked it inside her jacket, and slipped back out into the night. She was back in her bunk by 400, the evidence hidden beneath her mattress next to Jean's photograph. 30 minutes later, the alarm went off. Inspection day had arrived. The parade ground filled with soldiers at 0900, full-dress uniforms, perfect formations. 180 men standing at attention under the Arizona sun, and Maya Chen right in the center of the front row. Harlan emerged from the command building at exactly 9:05. He wore his dress uniform with full decorations, moving with the deliberate pace of a man who knew he owned every inch of ground he walked on. Sergeant Reeves flanked him on the left, Captain Mercer on the right. The entire command staff assembled to witness whatever was about to happen. Harlan stopped at the front of the formation. His eyes swept across his troops like a hawk surveying prey. "This unit," he began, his voice carrying across the silent compound, "represents the finest traditions of the United States Army. Discipline, honor, excellence." He paused, letting the words settle. "But there are those among us who do not uphold these standards. Those who think they can hide behind policy and politics. Those who do not belong." His gaze locked onto Maya. "Private Chen, step forward." Maya stepped out of formation. 1 step. 2. 3. She stopped directly in front of Harlan, close enough to see the cruel satisfaction in his eyes. "Private Chen has been with us for 16 days, Harlan announced loudly. "In that time, she has undermined a squad leader's authority, disrupted unit cohesion, and demonstrated a pattern of behavior inconsistent with her service record." He circled her slowly like a predator, circling wounded prey. "I have also received reports of her engaging in conduct unbecoming a soldier, rumors of fraternization, questions about her past assignments." He stopped in front of her. "Questions I intend to answer today." Maya's jaw tightened, but she remained at attention. Eyes forward. "Chin up!" Harlan leaned closer, lowering his voice just enough that only she could hear. "I know you're hiding something, Chen. I don't know what yet, but I'm going to find out. And when I do, you're going to wish you'd never been born." He straightened, raising his voice again. "Uniform inspection requires full compliance with regulation standards. Any modifications, markings, or alterations must be documented and approved." He smiled coldly. "Private Chen, remove your jacket." The words hit the formation like a shockwave. Whispers rippled through the ranks. This wasn't standard protocol. This was something else entirely. Maya didn't move. Harlan's smile widened. "That was an order, Private." Still, she stood motionless. Her heart was pounding, but her face betrayed nothing. "You know," Harlan said loud enough for everyone to hear, "I've dealt with your type before. Women who think they can waltz into a combat unit and coast on looks and sympathy. Women who don't understand that this is a man's world." He stepped even closer, his face inches from hers. "I've heard the rumors about you, Chen, about what you did to get this assignment, about who you spread your legs for." Gasps echoed across the formation. Even some of Harlan's loyalists looked uncomfortable. "So let's see what you're really hiding under that uniform." His voice turned to ice. "Take your clothes off right now, you whore." The words exploded across the parade ground like a bomb. 180 soldiers stood frozen. No one breathed. No one moved. Torres smirked from the third row. Reeves watched with cold satisfaction. Wallace, standing near the back, clenched his fists so hard his knuckles turned white. Maya looked at Harlan. Really looked at him. She saw the cruelty, the arrogance, the absolute certainty that he had already won. She thought of Jean, of the bruises on her arms, of the complaint that disappeared, of the note hidden in Building 47. Don't let him win. Slowly, deliberately, Maya reached for the top button of her jacket. One button. Harlan's eyes gleamed with triumph. 2 buttons. Whispers spread through the formation like wildfire. 3 buttons. Maya pulled off her jacket, folded it with perfect precision, and held it against her side. She stood in her olive undershirt, shoulders back, spine straight, and everyone saw the tattoo. It crawled up from beneath her sleeve. Wings of fire. A phoenix rising from ashes. And beneath it, coordinates and a single word that made Harlan's blood run cold. Survivor. The Phoenix. The mark of Shadow Phoenix. The unit that didn't exist. The unit that had pulled off missions so classified that even generals didn't have clearance to know about them. The unit that was rumored to be more lethal than any special forces team in the world. Harlan's smile disappeared. From the back of the formation, Master Sergeant Wallace stepped forward. His voice cut through the silence like a blade. I know that mark. Every head turned. Wallace walked toward the front, his weathered face unreadable. He stopped beside Maya, close enough that everyone could see them both. I saw it once before, he said loudly. In Kandahar, 009. We were pinned down 30 hostiles, no air support, running out of ammo. We thought we were dead. He looked at Maya's tattoo, then at her face. A team came out of nowhere. 5 women. No insignia, no identification. They cleared the building in 4 minutes flat, saved 11 of us. His voice hardened. They wore that phoenix. Every one of them. The formation exploded into whispers. Torres's smirk had vanished. Reeves looked like he'd swallowed something sharp. And Harlan had gone pale. Maya met his eyes. For the first time since she'd arrived at Fort Ironclad, she let him see what was really inside her. Not fear, not submission. Fire. You wanted to see what I'm hiding, Major? Her voice was quiet, but it carried across the entire parade ground. Now you know. Harlan's mouth opened. Closed. No words came out. For 30 seconds, no one moved. Then Harlan turned sharply and walked away. His stride was fast, almost stumbling. Reeves hurried after him. The command staff exchanged confused glances. Captain Mercer stepped forward, clearly shaken. Formation dismissed. The soldiers broke ranks, but no one left. They stood in clusters staring at Maya, whispering to each other. Maya put her jacket back on slowly, button by button. When she finished, she looked across the parade ground at the faces watching her. Some were shocked. Some were confused. Some, like Collins, like Rodriguez, like Wallace, were something else entirely. Respectful. She walked back toward the barracks without looking back. Behind her, the whispers grew louder, but they weren't mocking anymore. They were wondering, who the hell was Maya Chen? And what else was she hiding? Word traveled fast. By nightfall, every soldier on Fort Ironclad knew the story. The supply clerk who wasn't a supply clerk. The quiet woman who'd survived something none of them could imagine. The phoenix tattoo that had made Major Victor Harlan turn white as a ghost. Maya sat alone in the barracks, her jacket back on her face, betraying nothing. But inside, her mind was racing. The envelope was still under her mattress. Jean's evidence. 12 pages that could end Harlan's career and expose everything he'd done. But she couldn't use it yet. Not without corroboration. Not without witnesses willing to talk. And after what happened on the parade ground, Harlan would be desperate. Cornered animals were the most dangerous kind. The barracks door opened. Rodriguez walked in, followed by Collins, and 2 other soldiers Maya didn't know well. They stopped a few feet from her bunk. "Private Chen." Maya looked up. "What is it?" Rodriguez glanced at the others, then back at her. "We wanted to say what happened today. What Harlan did." He shook his head. "That was wrong. We all knew it was wrong, but nobody said anything." Collins spoke up, his voice shaky. "We were scared. Harlan's got connections. People who cross him. Bad things happen to them." Maya studied their faces. Young, uncertain, ashamed. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. Rodriguez took a breath. "Because we're done being scared. Whatever you're doing here, whatever you're really after, we want to help." Maya was silent for a long moment. Then she stood. "You want to help? Tell me what happened to John Chen." The name hit them like a physical blow. Collins flinched. Rodriguez's jaw tightened. "Jean Chen," Maya repeated. "She was stationed here 18 months ago, assigned to Bravo Company. Same barracks, same unit." Her voice hardened. "Same treatment." Rodriguez looked away. "We heard stories after it happened." "What stories?" "That she filed a complaint against Harlan, that he found out, that he went to her barracks the night before she died." Rodriguez's voice dropped. "Nobody saw what happened, but the next morning she was gone." Collins spoke up. "There was a soldier back then, Specialist Harris. He was on guard duty that night. He saw something." Maya's heart stopped. "Where is Harris now?" "Transferred out. 2 days after the funeral." Collins shook his head. "They shipped him to Alaska, middle of nowhere, like they wanted him to disappear." "Do you have contact information?" "Anything." Rodriguez pulled a folded paper from his pocket. "I found this in the records room. His last known assignment. Fort Wainwright." Maya took the paper. Her hands were steady, but her pulse was pounding. "Thank you," she said quietly. Rodriguez nodded. "Whatever you need, Chen, we've got your back." They left. Maya stared at the paper for a long time. Specialist Harris. A witness. Someone who might have seen what really happened to Jean. She had to find him, had to talk to him, but first she had to survive whatever Harlan was planning next. She didn't have to wait long. At 2200 hours, Sergeant Reeves appeared in the barracks doorway. His face was stone. "Chen, Major Harlan wants to see you. Now." Maya stood slowly. She could feel the other soldiers watching, their eyes following her as she walked toward the door. Collins stepped forward. "She shouldn't go alone." Reeves turned on him with a snarl. "Mind your own business, Private." "It's fine," Maya said calmly. She looked at Collins. "I'll be fine." She followed Reeves into the night. Harlan's office was dark when she entered. A single desk lamp cast harsh shadows across the walls. He sat behind his desk, hands folded, his face half hidden in darkness. Reeves closed the door behind them and stood blocking it. "Sit," Harlan said. Maya remained standing. "I'll stand, sir." A muscle twitched in Harlan's jaw. "Suit yourself." He leaned forward, the light catching the cold fury in his eyes. "I've spent the last 6 hours making phone calls, reaching out to every contact I have, trying to verify your credentials." Maya said nothing. "Shadow Phoenix," Harlan continued. "Do you know what I found? I can guess. Nothing. Harlan's voice sharpened. No records, no confirmation. No one willing to say anything. It's like the unit doesn't exist. It doesn't, Maya replied. Officially. Harlan stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Then how do I know you're not lying? How do I know that tattoo isn't just some story you made up to intimidate people? Maya met his gaze without flinching. You don't. But Master Sergeant Wallace does. He saw the Phoenix in Kandahar. He watched 5 women save his entire squad. She paused. Are you calling him a liar? Harlan's face reddened. Wallace is a fool, an old man living in the past. Wallace is a decorated veteran with 34 years of service. His word carries more weight than yours ever will. For a moment, Harlan looked like he might strike her. His hand trembled at his side. Reeves shifted uncomfortably by the door. Then Harlan laughed. It was a harsh, ugly sound. You think you've won something, don't you? You think that little show on the parade ground changed anything? He walked around the desk, stopping inches from her face. I've broken stronger women than you. I've destroyed careers. I've made people disappear. His voice dropped to a whisper. Your sister thought she could stand up to me too. Look where that got her. Maya's blood turned to ice. For 5 seconds, she didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't blink. Then very slowly, she spoke. What did you just say? Harlan smiled. It was the smile of a man who thought he'd just played his winning card. Oh, you didn't think I knew Private Jean Chen, assigned to my unit. Filed a complaint that conveniently vanished, found dead in the latrine 3 days later. He leaned closer. Suicide, they said. Tragic. Nobody asked too many questions. Maya's hands curled into fists at her sides. She was your sister, wasn't she? That's why you're really here. Not for training. Not for evaluation. His eyes glittered with malice. For revenge. The silence stretched between them like a wire about to snap. You're right, Maya said softly. I am here for her. Harlan's smile widened. And what exactly do you think you're going to do? You have no proof, no witnesses, no evidence. He spread his hands. It's your word against mine, and my uncle is a 2-star general. Maya reached into her jacket pocket. Harlan tensed. Reeves's hand moved toward his sidearm, but all she pulled out was a folded piece of paper. She held it up. Do you know what this is? Harlan's eyes narrowed. What? It's a record of every complaint filed against you in the last 5 years. Harassment, assault, intimidation, 12 separate incidents. Maya's voice was ice. Most of them disappeared from the official files, but my sister kept copies. She hid them before she died. The color drained from Harlan's face. You're bluffing. Maya unfolded the paper. She read aloud. March 15th, 2022. Private Sarah Mitchell reported unwanted physical contact during a training exercise. Complaint withdrawn under pressure. April 3rd, 2022. Specialist Amanda Torres reported verbal abuse and threats of career destruction. Transferred to different base within 48 hours. No investigation conducted. She looked up. Shall I continue? Harlan's composure cracked. Where did you get that? My sister was smarter than you thought. She knew you'd come for her. She knew you'd try to silence her. So she made sure the truth would survive even if she didn't. Reeves stepped forward. Sir, maybe we should... Shut up, Harlan snapped. His eyes never left Maya. That paper proves nothing. It's hearsay. Fabrication. Maybe, Maya acknowledged. But I also have photographs, documents, witness statements. She tucked the paper back into her pocket. Everything my sister collected preserved and waiting. You're lying. Am I? Maya took a step closer. There's a storage building on the edge of the compound, Building 47. Condemned. Scheduled for demolition. She watched his face carefully. Want to know what's hidden inside? Harlan's mask shattered completely. His face twisted with rage and something else, fear. Raw, primal fear. You little bitch, he breathed. You think you can destroy me? I think you destroyed yourself a long time ago. I'm just making sure the world knows about it. Harlan lunged. Maya was faster. She sidestepped, caught his arm, and used his momentum to spin him off balance. In one fluid motion, she had him bent over his own desk arm, twisted behind his back. Reeves drew his weapon. Let him go. Maya didn't move. Put the gun down, Sergeant. I said let him go. And I said put the gun down. Her voice was calm, controlled, terrifying. You shoot me, and everything I know goes public. Every document, every photograph, every witness statement. My people have instructions. Reeves hesitated. His hand trembled. Think carefully, Maya continued. You want to go down with him because that's what happens if you pull that trigger. Your career ends. Your pension disappears. Everything you've worked for, gone. The seconds stretched into eternity. Then slowly Reeves lowered his weapon. Maya released Harlan. He stumbled, catching himself on the desk, breathing hard. This isn't over, he snarled. No, Maya agreed. It's just beginning. She walked to the door, paused, and looked back. Tomorrow morning, I'm sending everything to the Inspector General's office. You have until then to decide how you want this to end. She opened the door. Choose wisely, Major. She walked out into the night. Behind her, Harlan stood frozen, his world crumbling around him. Maya didn't go back to the barracks. She walked to the far edge of the compound, to a spot overlooking the desert where the lights of the base couldn't reach. She stood there for a long time, staring at the stars. Jean, her big sister, her hero. The woman who'd taught her that strength wasn't about muscle. It was about will, about refusing to break no matter how hard they pushed. Jean had known she was going to die. She'd known Harlan would come for her. And instead of running, she'd gathered evidence, built a case, hidden it where only Maya would find it. She'd sacrificed herself to give her little sister a weapon. Tears burned in Maya's eyes, but she didn't let them fall. Not yet. Not until it was finished. Footsteps approached from behind. She turned. Master Sergeant Wallace stood a few feet away, his weathered face unreadable in the darkness. Heard there was some commotion at the command building, he said quietly. Word travels fast. Always does on a military base. He moved to stand beside her, looking out at the same empty horizon. You okay? Maya considered the question. I will be, when this is over. Wallace nodded slowly. I made some calls tonight, after what happened on the parade ground. He paused. Found someone who knows what really happened to your sister. Maya's heart stopped. Who? Colonel Diana Frost, base commander. She's been away at a conference, but she's coming back early. Tomorrow morning. Wallace turned to face her. Frost never believed the suicide story. She tried to launch an investigation, but Harlan's connections shut it down. She's been waiting for someone to reopen the case. Why didn't she do it herself? Because she had no proof, no witnesses willing to talk, no evidence. Wallace's eyes met hers. But you do. Maya absorbed this. A colonel on her side. Someone with the authority to make things happen. There's something else, Wallace added. That soldier you asked about. Specialist Harris. The one who was on guard duty the night Jean died. What about him? He's not in Alaska anymore. He got reassigned 3 months ago. Wallace pulled out his phone, showed her a message. He's at Fort Bliss, 4 hours from here. and he wants to talk." Maya stared at the screen. A name. A location. A chance. "How did you find this?" "I told you. I've been in this army 34 years. I know people who know people." Wallace pocketed his phone. "Harris has been carrying this weight for 18 months. Nightmares. Guilt. He saw something that night and he's been too scared to tell anyone. But when he heard about what happened today about you, he reached out." Maya's hands trembled. "What did he see?" "He wouldn't say over the phone, but he's willing to meet tomorrow night. Off base." Wallace's voice hardened. "This is your chance, Chen. The evidence your sister collected plus an eyewitness who can corroborate it. That's enough to bring Harlan down. For real this time." Maya looked back at the stars. Somewhere up there, she liked to think Jean was watching. "I'll be there," she said. Wallace nodded. "I figured you would. I'll drive you myself." They stood in silence for a long moment. Then Wallace spoke again, his voice softer. "Your sister. She talked about you sometimes, before everything happened." He paused. "She said you were the strongest person she knew, that nothing could break you." Maya's throat tightened. She was wrong. Plenty of things broke me. Maybe. But you put yourself back together. That's what matters. And Wallace turned to leave, then stopped. "Get some sleep, Private. Tomorrow's going to be a long day." He walked away into the darkness. Maya stayed where she was, alone with the desert wind and the weight of everything that was coming. At 0600, the barracks erupted in chaos. Military police stormed through the door, shouting orders, flipping bunks, tearing through lockers. Soldiers stumbled out of bed, confused and frightened. Maya was already awake, already dressed, already waiting. A young MP lieutenant approached her bunk. "Private Maya Chen." "That's me. You're under arrest, by order of Major Victor Harlan." The barracks went silent. Every soldier stared. Rodriguez stepped forward. "On what charges?" The lieutenant consulted his clipboard. "Theft of classified documents, insubordination, threatening a superior officer." He looked at Maya. "Hands behind your back." Maya didn't resist. She let them cuff her, let them march her out of the barracks, let them parade her past the dozens of soldiers who'd gathered to watch. Torres stood near the entrance, a satisfied smirk on his face. Guess the little girl finally got what was coming. Maya met his eyes as she passed. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. The smirk faltered. Torres looked away. They took her to the detention facility, a small concrete building on the edge of the compound. They processed her in silence, took her personal effects, and locked her in a holding cell. The door clanged shut. Maya sat on the hard metal bench and waited. 2 hours later, the door opened again. This time it wasn't an MP. It was Colonel Diana Frost. Frost was 58 years old, with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a severe bun, and eyes that had seen everything the military could throw at a woman, and survived. She wore her dress uniform with the quiet authority of someone who'd earned every ribbon on her chest. She dismissed the guard with a wave and stepped into the cell. "Private Chen." Maya stood. "Colonel?" Frost studied her for a long moment. "I've been reading your file. The real one, the one that's supposed to be classified." She paused. "Shadow Phoenix, Class of 2021. Distinguished service in Syria, Venezuela, and 3 other locations I don't have clearance to name." Maya said nothing. "I've also been reading your sister's file." Frost's voice softened. "Jean was one of the best soldiers I've ever commanded. When she died, I knew something was wrong, but every time I tried to investigate, the doors slammed shut. Harlan's connections. His uncle, two-star general with a very long reach. Frost shook her head. But you already knew that. Maya met her eyes. I know a lot of things, Colonel. I know Harlan murdered my sister. I know he's been doing this for years, and I know that unless someone stops him, more women are going to die. Frost nodded slowly. The evidence your sister collected. Where is it? Hidden. Safe. I need it. I know. But first I need you to release me. Frost raised an eyebrow. The charges are fabricated, and we both know it. Maya stepped closer. Harlan's panicking. He knows I have what I need to destroy him. He arrested me to buy time to find the evidence before I can use it. How do I know I can trust you? Maya reached up and pulled the collar of her shirt aside, revealing the phoenix tattoo. Because I swore an oath to protect this country from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And Victor Harlan is an enemy. Frost stared at the tattoo for a long moment. Then slowly she smiled. Your sister said the same thing. Almost word for word. She pulled out a key and unlocked Maya's cuffs. Welcome back, Private Chen. We have work to do. Colonel Frost moved fast. Within an hour, Maya was out of detention and sitting in Frost's private office, the door locked, the blinds drawn. Tell me everything, Frost said. From the beginning. Maya told her. About Jean's hidden evidence, about Building 47, about the 12 pages documenting Harlan's crimes, about Specialist Harris and what he might have witnessed. Frost listened without interrupting. When Maya finished, the colonel sat back in her chair, her face grim. I always suspected Harlan was dirty, but this... She shook her head. This is worse than I imagined. My sister gave her life to gather this evidence, Maya said quietly. She knew he'd come for her. She did it anyway. Frost met her eyes. Jean was one of the bravest soldiers I've ever known. When she died, I promised myself I'd find out what really happened. But every door I opened got slammed in my face. Because of the general. Major General Thomas Harlan, Victor's uncle. He's protected that bastard for years. Frost's voice hardened. But protection only goes so far. If we have solid evidence, eyewitness testimony, documented complaints, proof of cover-ups, even Thomas Harlan won't be able to save him. Maya leaned forward. Harris is willing to talk. He's at Fort Bliss, 4 hours from here. I know. I've already made arrangements. Frost checked her watch. Master Sergeant Wallace will drive you tonight. I've secured temporary leave papers. Officially, you're attending a medical evaluation at Bliss. And unofficially, you're going to get the testimony we need. Frost stood, walked to her window, stared out at the compound. But Maya, there's something you need to understand. The moment we move against Harlan, the general will fight back. Hard. He'll use every connection call in every favor. This won't be easy. Maya stood too. Nothing worth doing ever is. Frost turned to face her. For a long moment she said nothing. Then slowly she smiled. Your sister said that once, almost exactly. She taught me well. Frost extended her hand. Maya shook it. Get Harris's testimony. Bring it back. And then we end this. Maya nodded. Yes, ma'am. She walked out of Frost's office and almost ran directly into Torres. He was leaning against the wall, arms crossed, an ugly sneer on his face. 2 of his cronies flanked him. Well, well, look who got sprung. Torres pushed off the wall, stepping into her path. Must be nice having a colonel in your pocket. Maya didn't slow down. Move. Torres didn't. You think you've won something? You think embarrassing Harlan on the parade ground makes you special? He laughed. He's going to crush you. And when he does, I'm going to be there watching. Maya stopped. She looked at Torres with something close to pity. You know what I think, Torres? I think you're scared. Not of Harlan. Of yourself. She stepped closer. I think you know deep down that everything you believe about strength is wrong. That your whole life has been about tearing others down because you're terrified someone might see how weak you really are. Torres's face reddened. You don't know anything about me. I know you haven't won anything worth winning. I know you've spent your whole career bullying people who can't fight back. And I know that when this is over, you're going to have to look in the mirror and decide what kind of man you want to be. She walked past him. Choose wisely. She didn't look back. That evening, Wallace picked her up in a civilian vehicle. No military markings. No paper trail. They drove in silence for the first hour. The Arizona desert stretched endlessly around them, painted orange and purple by the setting sun. Finally, Wallace spoke. You ready for this? Maya stared out the window. I've been ready for 18 months. Harris is scared. He's been carrying this for a long time. He might not tell you everything right away. He will. Wallace glanced at her. How can you be so sure? Maya turned to face him. Because I'm going to tell him about Jean. About who she really was. About what she sacrificed. Her voice hardened. And then I'm going to ask him if he wants her death to mean something. Wallace nodded slowly. Fair enough. They arrived at Fort Bliss after dark. Wallace had arranged a meeting at a diner off base away from military eyes, the kind of place where conversations happened that never officially occurred. Specialist Marcus Harris was already there when they walked in. He sat in a corner booth, hunched over a cup of coffee, his eyes darting nervously toward the door every few seconds. He was 24 years old, but he looked older. Dark circles under his eyes, hands that trembled slightly. The look of a man who hadn't slept well in a very long time. Maya slid into the booth across from him. Wallace stayed by the door, keeping watch. Specialist Harris. He looked up. His eyes were haunted. You're Jean's sister. Yes. Harris's jaw tightened. You look like her. Same eyes. Maya said nothing. She waited. Harris wrapped both hands around his coffee cup like he was trying to draw warmth from it. I've wanted to tell someone for 18 months, but every time I tried, he shook his head. They made it clear what would happen if I talked. Who's they? Harlan. Reeves, the people who handle things for them. His voice dropped. They transferred me 2 days after Jean died. Told me if I said anything ever to anyone, they'd make sure I had an accident. Something that looked natural. Maya's blood ran cold, but her face stayed calm. What did you see, Marcus? Harris looked at her. Really looked at her. She could see the war playing out behind his eyes, fear versus guilt, silence versus truth. I was on guard duty that night, he said finally. 2 a.m. Everyone was supposed to be in their bunks, but I saw Harlan walking toward the women's barracks. Maya's heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. Go on? He went inside, alone. I thought it was weird, but he's the commander, right? I figured he was doing some kind of inspection. Harris's hands trembled harder. 20 minutes later, he came back out. He was walking fast, almost running. And his uniform, he stopped. What about his uniform? Harris's voice cracked. There was blood on his sleeve. Not a lot, just a little. But I saw it. And the look on his face, he shuddered. He looked scared. Not guilty, scared, like something had gone wrong. Maya's nails dug into her palms. What happened next? I filed it away. Told myself it was nothing. Told myself there had to be an explanation. Harris's eyes filled with tears. And then the next morning they found Jean. They said it was suicide, but I knew it wasn't. Why didn't you say anything? I tried. His voice broke completely. I went to Reeves, told him what I saw. He thanked me, said he'd look into it. And then 2 hours later I got transfer orders. Immediate deployment. He wiped his eyes roughly. They pulled me aside before I left. Told me what would happen if I talked. Told me they knew where my family lived. Maya reached across the table. She took his trembling hands in hers. Marcus, look at me. He looked up. You're not alone anymore. What you saw, what you know, it matters. It's going to help bring Jean justice. It's going to make sure Harlan never does this to anyone else. Harris stared at her. You really think you can take him down? I know I can, but I need your help. I need you to put this in writing. An official statement. On the record. The fear flickered in his eyes again. If you do that, you'll be protected. Colonel Frost is on our side. The Inspector General will be involved. Harlan won't be able to touch you. Harris was silent for a long moment. The diner hummed around them, clattering dishes, murmured conversations, a country song playing softly on the jukebox. Then slowly, he nodded. Okay, I'll do it. His voice steadied. For Jean. And for everyone else he's hurt. Maya squeezed his hands. Thank you, Marcus. Wallace approached with a folder. Inside were official statement forms, a recorder, everything they needed. Harris talked for 2 hours. He told them everything what he saw, when he saw it, every detail he could remember. He signed his name at the bottom of every page. When it was done, Maya stood. You did the right thing, she said. Harris looked up at her. I should have done it 18 months ago. You did it now. That's what matters. She walked out of the diner with Wallace Harris's statement tucked safely in her jacket. They drove back to Fort Ironclad in silence. Maya watched the desert scroll past in the darkness, her mind racing. They had the evidence. They had the witness. Now they just needed to put it all together. When they arrived back at base, it was nearly midnight. The compound was quiet, most soldiers asleep. But something was wrong. Maya felt it the moment she stepped out of the vehicle. An electricity in the air. A tension that hadn't been there when she left. Wallace sensed it too. Something's happened. They walked toward the barracks. Halfway there, Rodriguez came running toward them, his face pale with urgency. Chen, thank God you're back. What's wrong? It's Building 47. Rodriguez was breathing hard. Someone set it on fire. About an hour ago. The whole thing burned down. Maya's blood turned to ice. The evidence, she whispered. Rodriguez shook his head. I don't know what was in there, but whatever it was, it's gone. Nothing left but ashes. Maya stood frozen. 18 months of her sister's work. Gone. Destroyed. Harlan. It had to be Harlan. He'd figured out where Jean had hidden the evidence, and he'd made sure no one would ever find it. Wallace put a hand on her shoulder. Maya. She shook him off. I need to think. She walked away, her mind spinning. The building was gone. The documents, the photographs, the witness statements Jean had collected, all of it reduced to nothing. But wait. Maya stopped walking. Her hand moved to her jacket pocket. To the papers she'd taken from Building 47 that first night. She still had them. Jean's original notes. The list of complaints. The key evidence. Harlan had burned the building, but he'd been too late. Maya had already taken what mattered. A grim smile crossed her face. He'd tried to destroy the past, but the past was already in her hands. She turned and walked toward Colonel Frost's office. The colonel was still awake despite the late hour. When Maya entered, Frost looked up with tired eyes. "I heard about the fire. Harlan's getting desperate." Maya pulled the envelope from her jacket and placed it on the desk. "He burned the building, but I got these out days ago." Frost opened the envelope, scanned the documents inside. Her eyes widened. "This is everything?" "Not everything, but enough. Combined with Harris's testimony, we have what we need." Frost looked up. "Harris talked." Maya nodded. "Full statement." "On the record. He saw Harlan leaving the women's barracks the night Jean died. Blood on his uniform. Fear in his eyes." Frost sat back, her expression shifting from exhaustion to something harder, more determined. "Then we move tomorrow. First thing. I'll contact the Inspector General's office, request an immediate investigation. With this evidence and Harris's testimony, they'll have no choice but to act." "What about General Harlan?" Frost's jaw tightened. "The general is a problem, but he's not invincible. If we can prove his nephew murdered a soldier and covered it up, even Thomas Harlan won't be able to protect him." Maya nodded. "What do you need me to do?" "Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be a long day." Frost paused. "And Maya, be careful. Harlan knows he's cornered. Cornered animals do desperate things." Maya met her eyes. "So do I." She left the office and walked back toward the barracks. The compound was dark, quiet, but she could feel eyes on her, watching, waiting. She was halfway to her bunk when a figure stepped out of the shadows. Sergeant Reeves. He stood directly in her path, his face twisted with barely contained rage. "You think you're clever, don't you?" His voice was a low snarl. "You think you've got Harlan backed into a corner?" Maya stopped. "Get out of my way, Sergeant. I've been with the Major for 15 years. 15 years of loyalty. And you think some little girl with a sad story is going to tear all that down?" Maya said nothing. Reeves stepped closer. "I know about the fire. I know it didn't work. I know you still have what you need." His eyes glittered dangerously. "But evidence can be lost. Witnesses can disappear. Accidents happen all the time." Maya's body tensed, every muscle coiling for action. "Is that a threat, Sergeant? It's a promise." Reeves was inches from her face now. "Your sister thought she was untouchable too. Look what happened to her." Something snapped inside Maya. She moved before Reeves could react. Her hand closed around his throat, driving him backward until he slammed against the wall. His eyes went wide with shock and sudden fear. Maya leaned in close. Her voice was barely a whisper, but it carried the weight of 18 months of grief and rage. "You want to know what happened to the last person who threatened me? He's buried in a shallow grave outside Damascus. No name, no marker, nothing." Her grip tightened. "I'm not my sister Reeves. Jean played by the rules. I don't." Reeves clawed at her hand, gasping for air. "If you come near me again, if you threaten me again, if you so much as look at me wrong, I will end you. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Tonight." She released him, letting him crumple against the wall. "Are we clear?" Reeves nodded frantically, clutching his throat. Maya straightened her uniform. "Good. Now get out of my sight." He scrambled away into the darkness, stumbling, terrified. Maya watched him go. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear, from adrenaline, from the release of emotions she'd been holding back for far too long. She continued to her barracks. Inside, most soldiers were asleep. But Collins was awake, sitting on his bunk, watching the door. "Chen," he stood as she entered. I heard about the fire. Is it true? Did they destroy everything? Maya shook her head. Not everything. I got the important stuff out before Harlan burned the building. Collins let out a breath of relief. Thank God. How did he know? Maya asked quietly. How did Harlan find out about Building 47? Collins's face darkened. Torres. He was bragging about it earlier. Said he'd been watching you, following you. He saw you go into the building a few nights ago. Maya's jaw clenched. Torres. Of course. Don't worry about him, Collins said quickly. Me and Rodriguez and some of the others, we've got your back. Whatever happens tomorrow, you're not alone. Maya looked at him. This scared kid who'd asked her for advice just days ago. He'd grown. They all had. Thank you, Collins. He nodded awkwardly. Get some sleep. Big day tomorrow. Maya lay down on her bunk, but she didn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, running through everything that needed to happen. Harris's statement, Jean's evidence, Frost's support, the Inspector General. It was enough. It had to be enough. But somewhere in the back of her mind, a voice whispered. Harlan wasn't finished. He still had one card left to play. And Maya had a feeling she was about to find out what it was. At 0600, alarms screamed across the compound. Maya was up instantly, already dressed, already moving. Something was wrong. The alarm pattern wasn't for a drill, it was emergency lockdown. She burst out of the barracks. Soldiers were running everywhere, confusion and panic spreading like wildfire. Wallace appeared at her side. Chen, there's been an incident. What kind of incident? Harlan. Wallace's face was grim. He's barricaded himself in the command building. He's got Colonel Frost. Maya's blood froze. He's what? He took her hostage about 20 minutes ago, showed up at her office with his sidearm drawn, dragged her inside, locked all the doors. Wallace's voice dropped. He's demanding safe passage off base, and he's asking for you. Maya stared at him. For me, he says if you don't come to him in 30 minutes, he's going to kill her. The world seemed to stop spinning. This was it, Harlan's final card, his last desperate move. Maya looked toward the command building. Military police were setting up a perimeter. Officers were shouting orders. Chaos everywhere. But through it all, one thought burned clear in her mind. Jean had died trying to stop this man. Frost had risked everything to help bring him down. Maya wasn't going to let him win. Not now. Not ever. She turned to Wallace. Get me close to that building. Wallace grabbed her arm. Maya, this is suicide. Harlan's got nothing to lose. He'll kill you both. Maya pulled free. He wants me. Fine. He's going to get me. Her eyes hardened. But not the way he thinks. She started walking toward the command building. Behind her, Wallace hesitated for only a second. Then he followed. The perimeter guards tried to stop her. Maya didn't slow down. Private Chen, you can't. Get out of my way. Something in her voice made them step aside. She approached the building's main entrance, 30 feet away. 20. 10. The door opened. Harlan stood there, one arm wrapped around Frost's throat, his pistol pressed against her temple. His eyes were wild, desperate, the eyes of a man who'd lost everything and knew it. Maya Chen, he called out. So good of you to join us. Maya stopped. Her hands hung at her sides. Her face was calm, controlled, betraying nothing. Let her go, Harlan. This is between us. No. He shook his head violently. This is about survival. Mine. He tightened his grip on Frost. You've taken everything from me. My career, my reputation, my future. So now I'm going to take something from you. If you hurt her, what are you going to do? Harlan laughed. It was a broken, terrible sound. "I'm already finished, but I'm going to make damn sure I take you down with me." Maya took a step forward. "Then take me. I'm right here. Let Frost go and take me instead." Frost struggled against Harlan's grip. "Maya, don't—" "Shut up!" Harlan pressed the gun harder against her head. "You're not in charge anymore, Colonel." Maya raised her hands slowly. "Look at me, Harlan. I'm unarmed. I'm not a threat. You want revenge, fine. I'm offering myself. Just let her go." Harlan's eyes narrowed. "Why would you do that? Because she matters more than I do." Maya's voice was steady, certain. "Because some things are worth dying for." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Harlan shoved Frost forward. She stumbled, caught herself, and scrambled toward the perimeter. Harlan raised his weapon toward Maya. "Your sister said the same thing," he snarled. "Right before I killed her." Maya didn't flinch. "I know. She told me." Harlan's finger tightened on the trigger, and Maya moved. The shot rang out across the compound, but Maya was already moving. Years of Shadow Phoenix training took over muscle memory honed in the darkest corners of the world. She dropped low, twisted sideways, felt the bullet whisper past her ear close enough to leave a burn. Harlan's eyes went wide with shock. He'd expected her to freeze, expected her to die standing still like a deer in headlights. He didn't know who he was dealing with. Maya closed the distance in 3 steps, her hand locked around his wrist, twisting the weapon away from her body. Harlan tried to bring the gun back around, tried to fire again, but she was faster. She drove her elbow into his solar plexus. He doubled over, gasping. The gun clattered to the ground. "You killed my sister," Maya said, her voice ice cold. She swept his legs out from under him. He crashed onto his back, the wind knocked from his lungs. "You thought you could silence her." Maya stood over him, breathing hard. "You thought you could make her disappear." Harlan scrambled backward, terror replacing the madness in his eyes. "I'll destroy you. Your uncle can't save you anymore." Maya stepped on his chest, pinning him to the ground. "No one can." Military police swarmed around them, weapons drawn, shouting orders. "Private Chen, step back." Maya didn't move. She stared down at Harlan, this man who had haunted her nightmares for 18 months. This man who had murdered the only family she had left. She could end him, right here, right now. One quick strike, and it would be over. But Jean's voice echoed in her memory. "Don't become the monster, little sister. That's how they win." Maya lifted her boot off Harlan's chest. She stepped back slowly. "He's all yours," she said to the MPs. They descended on Harlan like wolves. Within seconds he was cuffed, pinned helpless. He screamed threats and curses as they dragged him away, but his words meant nothing now. Colonel Frost approached Maya. Her uniform was disheveled, her face pale, but her eyes burned with gratitude and something deeper. "You saved my life." Maya shook her head. "You gave me the chance to finish this. We're even." Frost studied her for a long moment. Then she reached out and gripped Maya's shoulder. "Jean would be proud of you." Maya's throat tightened. She couldn't speak. She just nodded. The compound erupted into organized chaos. More military police arrived, investigators, officers from the Inspector General's department. News spread through the base like wildfire. Major Victor Harlan had been arrested. The untouchable commander was finally facing justice. Maya stood apart from it all, watching. She felt hollow, empty. For 18 months, she'd lived for this moment. Now that it was here, she didn't know what to feel. Wallace found her near the motor pool, staring at nothing. "You okay?" "I don't know." Her voice was distant. I thought it would feel different, like victory, like closure. Wallace stood beside her, his weathered face understanding. It never feels like they say it will. The bad guy goes down, but the people we lost don't come back. No, they don't. They stood in silence for a long moment. What happens now? Maya asked. Now the process takes over. Court-martial, investigations. Harlan's uncle is already trying to spin this, but he won't succeed. Too many witnesses. Too much evidence. Wallace paused. Harris's statement alone would be enough, combined with everything else Harlan's finished. Maya nodded slowly. And the other women, the ones he drove out, the ones who died. Frost is reopening every case, every complaint that was buried, every transfer that was suspicious, every death that was ruled suicide. Wallace's voice hardened. By the time this is over, the whole world will know what Victor Harlan really was. It wasn't enough. Nothing would ever be enough. But it was something. That evening they held an emergency formation. Every soldier on Fort Ironclad stood in rows waiting. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of fire and blood. Colonel Frost stood at the front. Her voice carried across the parade ground. Today, this base witnessed something that should have happened a long time ago. A predator was removed from our ranks. A man who used his power to destroy innocent lives. A man who believed he was above the law. She paused, letting her words sink in. Major Victor Harlan has been arrested on charges of murder, assault, harassment, and obstruction of justice. Additional charges are pending as the investigation continues. Murmurs rippled through the formation. But I'm not here to talk about Harlan. Frost's gaze moved across the assembled soldiers. I'm here to talk about courage, about what it means to stand up for what's right, even when it costs you everything. She turned toward Maya. Private Maya Chen came to this base under false pretenses. She's not a supply clerk. She's a decorated member of one of the most elite units our military has ever produced. She came here to find the truth about her sister's death. And she succeeded. Maya felt every eye on her. Some curious, some awed, some still skeptical. But more importantly, Frost continued, she showed us something we'd forgotten. That rank doesn't equal character. That strength isn't about how loud you yell or how many people you can bully. It's about standing your ground when everything tells you to run. Frost's voice softened. Private Chen saved my life today. She could have let Harlan kill me and exposed him anyway. Instead, she put herself in harm's way for someone she barely knew. She paused. That's not just bravery. That's honor. The formation was silent. Not the silence of indifference, the silence of respect. Frost straightened. I'm recommending Private Chen for immediate promotion and commendation. Her service record will be updated to reflect her true background and contributions. She looked at Maya. This woman is what a soldier should be. I hope you all learn from her example. The formation was dismissed, but nobody moved right away. Rodriguez was the first to approach Maya. He stood in front of her, awkward and uncertain. I never said thank you, for the navigation exercise, for standing up to Torres, for all of it. Maya shook her head. You don't owe me anything. Yeah, I do. He extended his hand. Thank you, for showing us what we were supposed to be. She shook his hand. Collins came next. Then Wallace. Then soldiers she didn't know. Men who'd ignored her, mocked her, doubted her. One by one they came. Some shook her hand. Some just nodded. Some apologized for things they'd said or done. Maya accepted it all. Not because she needed their approval, but because this was the change Jean had died for. Torres hung back at the edge of the crowd, watching. He didn't approach. When Maya's eyes met his, he looked away. That was enough. For now. Hours later, Maya stood alone at the edge of the compound, looking out at the desert. The stars were bright overhead, the same stars Jean had once watched from this very base. Footsteps approached. She didn't turn. "You know," Colonel Frost said, stopping beside her. "I've been in the Army 32 years. I've seen a lot of soldiers come and go. Good ones, bad ones, everything in between." Maya said nothing. "I've never seen anyone like you." Frost's voice was quiet. "What you did today, the restraint you showed. You could have killed Harlan. Part of me thinks you should have. But you didn't. Jean wouldn't have wanted that." "No, she wouldn't have." Frost paused. "I knew your sister Maya. Not well, but enough. She talked about you sometimes. Said you were the strong one. The one who could handle anything." Maya's eyes burned. She was wrong. She was always the strong one. I just tried to keep up. "Maybe that's what sisters do." Frost turned to face her. "I have something for you. Something that was found in Harlan's personal effects." She held out a small object. A coin. Worn, weathered with a phoenix barely visible on one side. Maya's breath caught. Jean's coin. Harlan kept it, as a trophy probably. Frost's voice hardened with disgust. "It belongs with you." Maya took the coin. It was warm from Frost's hand, heavy with memory. She turned it over, ran her thumb across the phoenix design. "We got them together," she whispered. "The coins. After our final mission. She said they'd remind us of what we survived. What we became." "And what's that?" Maya looked up at the stars. "Survivors, not victims, not soldiers, just people who refused to break." Frost nodded slowly. "What are you going to do now? You've earned any assignment you want. Special ops. Training command. Hell, I could get you a desk at the Pentagon if that's what you wanted." Maya considered the question. For the first time in 18 months, she didn't have a mission. Didn't have an enemy to fight. Didn't have a purpose driving her forward. "I don't know," she admitted. "I've spent so long focused on this one thing. Now that it's over—" "It's not over," Frost's voice sharpened. "What happened here, it's happening at bases all over the country, all over the world. Predators in positions of power. Good soldiers being destroyed because nobody stops it." Maya turned to look at her. "I'm putting together a special unit," Frost continued. "Off the books. Investigators, advocates, people who can go where the official channels can't. People who know what it's like to fight from the inside." "And you want me?" "I want what you represent. Someone who's been through hell and came out the other side. Someone who can show other survivors that they're not alone." Frost paused. Someone who can turn the worst thing that ever happened to them into a weapon for change. Maya looked back at the stars. She thought about Jean. About the women who'd been driven out of Fort Ironclad. About the ones who hadn't survived. She thought about Collins and Rodriguez, and all the young soldiers who were just starting out, who needed to see that the system could work, that justice was possible, that standing up mattered. "Yes," she said finally. "I'm in." Frost smiled. "Good. We start Monday." The next morning, Maya stood at Jean's grave in the base cemetery. It was a small plot marked with a simple headstone. The official inscription said nothing about how she died or why. Maya knelt and placed the phoenix coin on the grass. "I got him Jean." Her voice cracked. "He's going to prison. He's never going to hurt anyone again." The wind stirred around her, gentle as a breath. "I found your evidence, your notes, everything you hid. Maya wiped her eyes roughly. You knew, didn't you? You knew he was coming for you, and you set all this up anyway, for me. She pressed her hand against the headstone, feeling the cold stone beneath her palm. I'm sorry I wasn't here. Sorry I couldn't save you. But I promise, I swear on everything I am, I'm going to make sure your death meant something. I'm going to help the ones who are still fighting, the ones who think nobody's listening. She stood slowly. Rise from the ashes, right? That's what you always said. Maya touched the tattoo on her shoulder. I'm rising, Jean, and I'm taking everyone with me. She walked away from the grave toward the morning sun. Behind her, the wind picked up the phoenix coin and spun it gently before settling it back against the headstone, gleaming in the light. 3 months later, Maya stood in front of a new formation. Not at Fort Ironclad at Fort Liberty, where she'd been assigned to build something new. 30 soldiers stood before her. All women. All survivors of harassment, assault, or discrimination in their previous units. All told, they didn't belong. Didn't matter. Couldn't make it. Maya looked at them and saw herself. Saw Jean. Saw every woman who'd ever been told she wasn't enough. My name is Captain Maya Chen, she began. Some of you know my story. Some of you don't. Doesn't matter. What matters is why you're here. She walked along the line, meeting each woman's eyes. You're here because someone tried to break you. Someone told you that you didn't belong. That you should quit. That the military wasn't a place for people like you. She stopped at the center of the formation. They were wrong. Her voice strengthened. You survived things that would destroy most people. You endured treatment that nobody should ever face, and you're still standing, still fighting, still refusing to give up. She looked at them, these women who'd been pushed down, counted out, written off. I'm not going to tell you it gets easier. It doesn't. I'm not going to promise you justice. Sometimes it doesn't come. What I'm going to tell you is this: you are not alone. Not anymore. She stepped back. This unit is different. Here we protect each other. We train each other. We make each other stronger. And when we're done, we go back out there and change things. One base at a time, one unit at a time, one soldier at a time. The women stood straighter, something shifting in their faces. Hope replacing resignation, determination replacing despair. You are not victims, Maya said. You are phoenixes, and starting today, we rise. From the back of the formation, a young private raised her hand. She couldn't have been more than 20, small, thin, with bruises still fading on her arms. Captain Chen. Yes. How do we do it? How do we rise when they keep pushing us down? Maya thought about Jean. About Harlan. About the 18 months she'd spent in darkness, driven by nothing but grief and rage. One day at a time, she said. One choice at a time. Every time they knock you down, you get up. Every time they tell you to quit, you push harder. And every time they try to silence you, you speak louder. She paused. My sister taught me that. She died fighting for what was right. But before she did, she left me something. Evidence. Truth. A weapon I could use to take down the man who killed her. Maya's voice dropped, but every woman heard her clearly. You all have that weapon inside you. Your story. Your survival. Your refusal to be erased. That's more powerful than any gun, any rank, any connection. She looked across the formation. Use it. The private nodded slowly. Around her, other women were nodding too. Not with blind faith, with understanding. With shared experience. With the knowledge that the woman standing in front of them had walked through the same fire they had. Fall out, Maya ordered. Training begins in 30 minutes. The formation dispersed. but the young private lingered, approaching Maya hesitantly. "Captain Chen, I just wanted to say thank you for being here, for doing this." She swallowed hard. "I was going to quit. Last month. I had the paperwork filled out, but then I heard about what happened at Fort Ironclad. About you." Maya waited. "You gave me hope," the private continued. "That maybe it wasn't over, that maybe I could still make it mean something." Maya looked at this young woman barely out of childhood, already carrying wounds that would take years to heal. "What's your name?" "Private Sarah Mitchell, ma'am." The name hit Maya like a punch to the gut. Sarah Mitchell. One of the names in Jean's files. One of Harlan's victims who'd been transferred out before she could testify. "Sarah," Maya's voice softened. "I knew your name. Before today. My sister wrote about you." Sarah's eyes widened. She did. She documented everything. Every complaint. Every victim. Including you. Maya put her hand on the young woman's shoulder. "Jean wanted to help you. She wanted to help all of you. That's why she died." Tears spilled down Sarah's cheeks. "I'm so sorry. I should have stayed. Should have fought harder. But they told me, I know what they told you. I know what they threatened. And none of it was your fault." Maya squeezed her shoulder. "But you're here now. That's what matters." Sarah wiped her eyes roughly. "I want to help. Whatever you're building here, I want to be part of it." "You already are." Sarah nodded, straightened her spine, and walked toward the training field. Maya watched her go. Then she looked up at the sky, clear blue, endless. Jean's voice whispered in her memory. "Don't let them win. Don't let them do this to anyone else." "I won't," Maya said softly. "I promise." That night, Maya sat in her quarters writing in a journal she'd started after Jean's death. She documented everything: the investigation, the trial that was coming, the new unit she was building. She wrote for the survivors who would come after her, for the women who would need to know they weren't alone. On the last page, she wrote, "My sister once told me that strength isn't about never breaking. It's about putting yourself back together when you do. I broke when she died. I shattered into 1,000,000 pieces. But I gathered those pieces and built something new, something stronger. They called me a whore, a diversity hire, a weak link. They told me I didn't belong, that I should quit, that women like me had no place in their world. They were wrong. I am a soldier, a survivor, a sister, a phoenix, and I will never stop rising." She closed the journal. Outside, the sun was setting. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new battles, new soldiers who needed to learn that their strength was greater than their trauma. Maya Chen stood at her window, watching the light fade. She thought about Jean, about the 18 months of grief and rage that had led her here, about the moment she'd chosen restraint over revenge, justice over vengeance. She wasn't the same woman who'd stepped off that bus at Fort Ironclad. That woman had been driven by pain, consumed by loss, defined by what had been taken from her. This woman, the one standing here now, was defined by what she chose to give. Hope to the hopeless, strength to the struggling, justice to the forgotten. Jean had lit a fire that Harlan couldn't extinguish. Maya would make sure it spread. She pressed her hand against her shoulder, feeling the phoenix tattoo beneath her shirt. Some people burn out. Some people fade away. But some people catch fire and become unstoppable. Maya Chen had burned through hell itself, and now finally she had risen from the ashes, stronger, fiercer, and ready to light the way for everyone who would follow. The phoenix doesn't die. It transforms. And Maya Chen was just getting started.